Hello, warriors. Thank you for tuning in to the Invisible Diaries, where we shed light on invisible and chronic illnesses through community support, education, and advocacy. Welcome to episode 8. We are your hosts. I'm Misty,
And I'm Amber.
and today we are talking about boundaries. As always, a quick disclaimer anything mentioned in today's episode is strictly for informational purposes only and not meant to treat, diagnose, or cure disease.
Also, we know battling chronic illness can be difficult. So if you find that you or a loved one are in need of someone to talk to, please reach out to a trusted resource. Or if you're in the US, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1 800 273 8255. That's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, that number is 1 800 273 8255.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah. All right.
I'll
So
let
we're
you.
talking.
I'll let you kick this off because we kind
All
of
right.
we picked the next two. So she picked boundaries, and I picked the next one. So I'll let you lead. Why did you choose boundaries? What
Boundaries.
inspired this topic?
Look, this is something like near and dear to my heart for so many
Mm-hmm.
different reasons, but mostly because I grew up not really having them in place. So as an adult, I didn't really have that as a tool in my toolkit, which made every kind of relationship difficult. So it made friendships difficult, it made workplace relationships difficult, obviously, significant other relationships difficult because you don't really know how to communicate, you don't really know how to explain or articulate what it is that you need properly. And also, for someone like myself, I didn't know how to ask for what I needed. I felt a lot of guilt and shame
Yeah.
because I'm such a people pleaser. So I spent a lot of time in my early 20s and mid 20s really trying to learn how to set healthy boundaries for myself. Because I remember the first time one of my girlfriends who was raised with really healthy boundaries was like, "You don't have any boundaries." And I was like, "What is that?" Like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
So she recommended a really good book to me, which was the book Boundaries, and it's by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. And we'll have all these links in our post, guys. So I know for those of you listening, you can't see the book, but I'm holding it up on, for those watching on YouTube. But basically, they're kind of like the boundary, gurus, kind of like with what Dr. Brene Brown's doing with, shame and all of that. They're amazing. Their books are really easy to follow. You can do a little bit at a time for those of us that have difficulty concentrating. And they have little, exercises to implement like right away. So,
Oh,
but
cool.
basically, the book kind of really explains, and their little, excerpt says when to say yes, how to say no, and to take control back in your life. So I have them like literally for teens, kids, myself,
Oh,
all of it.
cool.
But I think that it applies especially for those with chronic illness because we are already having a difficult time taking care of ourselves. That this to me is one of the biggest tools that you can put in your toolbox that allows you to really develop that self-care.
Yeah. So give me a good example of maybe a boundary that you set up or that started implementing.
Um, so let me think of one with regards to health. Um, I sat my family down and I basically told them upfront, you know, what I can do each week since I still work and I go to school, what I'm willing to do as far as housework. If I'm feeling well and everything's going great, like this is what I say I'll do. And then I kind of let them, you know, offer or volunteer what they think they could do. And it was really interesting because I was surprised to hear how much they expected me to do. Not like, but just like the laundry or
Yeah.
the dishes or the, and it was kind of one of those things where I was like, guys, like, you know, if I'm having a really good day, the last thing that I want to do is clean up after everyone. So as far
Amen.
as housework goes, we all live together. This is what I'm willing to do. and then this is what I'm not willing to do. So
Mhm.
that kind of helped them, understand what I'm capable of, and then also, what they're responsible for, because, everybody is responsible for themselves. So,
Yeah.
but it kind of, even with my son, a lot of times if I'm really having a tough mental day and I'm tired and I don't have it in me, I've explained to him, what my rules are, or what, if he's talking back, that I don't have, I was like, I don't have the spoons for that. So if he keeps going, then I'm able to say, you're not respecting my boundary right now. I've asked you to put a pause button in this, and we can, resume it when I actually have the energy to do it, or to
Mhm.
have this conversation or debate, because he loves to debate. And I'm able to set it so he knows, okay, I'm pushing too hard and I'm starting to disrespect, mom. And then he's able to take a step back. So without it getting to a fight, without,
Yeah.
arguing, so I can kind of just be like, whoa, you're pushing, you're now on my space. And he
Mhm.
knows, because I've made it very clear what what I'll accept as far as, treatment and
Right.
talking and all of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great example, and it also sounds like one of the really important key elements to setting boundaries is communication.
Absolutely.
Um, and so I've kind of done something similar with my family. So my kids are teens, and forever it took um, so many years to try to get like the chores and stuff established, because at first, I wanted it to be fair, so each one would have something they do, and then we'd always forget which day they did it, or they'd say, oh, I did that last, and it was just an argument every time. So I made a chore chart. It's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Sunday, and their names, and I it's literally been the same for like 3 years now. It hasn't
Mm-hmm.
changed. And so it's like we automatically know, like, okay, Friday, so and so does the dishes. And then the days in between, like Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays and stuff, my husband and I will, do them, or they'll pile up. Depends. Um but it's helped a lot because no one argues. They know what's expected of them. And
Mm-hmm.
Sunday is just like, basically like clean your room.
Right.
Just like a reminder, like tidy up your room. And it's just nice to kind of establish, you know, what is expected of everyone. And that really
Yeah,
does fall into the categories of boundaries because,
absolutely.
um, you know, for me, it's like I think especially being women, or a mom or wife, whatever, it's like you're like automatically like stuck in that role that you're supposed to clean up after everyone, and do all these things. And so um, I basically kind of got to a point where I was like, I need help. I need
Mm-hmm.
help. I need you guys to help. Another thing we kind of did, which we haven't been doing lately, so I really want to get back on it, is the kids would make dinner,
Mm-hmm.
like only like once a month. Like each week, one person was in charge of dinner that week, one night that week. So really just super simple, not anything
Yeah,
crazy or extreme. And it was fun because, um, you know, they got to learn. They're learning how to cook. They had to pick out the ingredients, and of course we'd help. But they really enjoyed it, and I think it's also a great skill to teach. But it
absolutely.
also kind of helps in the long run, because then, you know, once they get more used to that, in the long run, they can make dinner one night if I can't, or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it helps
yeah.
to make them a little more independent. You know?
Well, and it goes along the lines, boundaries are really important because it gives you a tool to ask for what you need. And I think that's the hardest part, when especially when you're out of energy and you're at the end of the day and you're like, the last thing that I want to do is like have a fight with one of my loved ones or
Yeah.
roommate or whoever over, you know, chores or responsibilities or money or whatever it is that happens to be, the issue. It just gives you an opportunity to be like, this is what I need. And, you know, it gives them an opportunity also to step up to the plate. So like for you with your kids, it helps, it empowers them because it gives them, a purpose. So, but the other thing that I love, um, with regards to boundaries is that it gives you an opportunity to say no without feeling guilty.
Yeah, I was
Because
just gonna bring that up. Saying
yeah,
no. Great.
saying no is a really tough one. For a lot of people I know, I struggle with it because I'm a people pleaser and I just want to make everybody happy. So a lot of times I'll say yes when I really want to say no. And I hate that part because then I'm like, why did I do that? Like now I'm struggling with the anxiety of doing the thing I didn't want to do. And then I
Mhm.
beat myself up for not, you know, sticking to my boundary, which is that I don't say yes if I really mean no. I
Yeah.
say, thank you so much for inviting me. Please think of me next time. I'm just not able to do it this time, or whatever. But I don't.
Yeah.
Once I say no, I let it go because you
Yeah,
know,
that's it's tough. It definitely takes a little bit of trial and error and experience to get to that point because I know for me, I never could say no. It's like the fear
right,
of missing out thing, I guess.
absolutely.
But and then it's like I catch myself saying yes, and then once it got down to that point, I'm like, why did I say yes? I have all these things on my plate. I'm not a normal person. Like I really can't juggle this. Like what was I thinking? And then I feel terrible flaking at the last minute.
Yeah.
And I guess ways to help that so you don't feel quite as bad is like how you worded that was perfect, saying, please think of me next time. I would love to be invited to the next one, but I just, you know, can't make
Well,
it today.
that's the other side. That was one of the boundaries I set for myself as well, which was I don't have to over explain why.
Mhm.
I don't owe anybody a why,
Yeah,
and
I
so
agree,
that's
but for like some friends and family, like close ones, like um, I feel like sometimes a slight explanation in case they don't understand because it is a weird spot to be in because you do have people who don't understand or
mm,
and they just they think like you're flaky and you bail on them last minute it's hard because that's the last thing you want when you're in bed and you're miserable. Like of course I would love to be at the little fun party that I was invited to, but instead I'm nursing my health and in bed, and it's like what goes on in our head, and it kind of like adds salt to the wound when you feel like you let someone down. So you really have to find the balance between not having to give an explanation versus um like also in a way wanting them to kind of understand, like, look, I want to be there, I can't.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
hard,
But I
it's a
mean,
tough.
and that's such a personal, which is another beautiful thing about boundaries. They're highly specific to the individual. So and the situation
True.
and it's not going to be the same for everyone. And we
Hmm.
kind of, the analogy is given, like with property lines, you can't necessarily see them. Like if you live in a house, you don't, unless you have a fence up, you don't necessarily know, where the boundaries lie. But the minute you put that fence up, you now know, like, this is where my yard ends, this is where the neighbor's yard begins. And so if they start planting a tree on my side of the fence, they're now on my boundary. So it's like you're able to say, like, look, you see, you're on the wrong side. And that's kind
Hmm.
of how verbal boundaries work as well, where, it explains to someone, where you end, where they begin, but it helps you kind of stick to the not taking responsibility for their feelings or their expectations or whatever, because that's your only responsibility, is to say, this is what I expect, or this is what I'll tolerate as far as treatment. And
Hmm.
if someone gets mad about that, that's not your responsibility. Yeah.
Bye.
That's not. And I understand in some cases that, people have spouses or significant others or children. Like, these are all things, these are not things we inherently know. These are tools that we have to learn. So of course there's going to be pushback in the beginning, because just like with any new skill you're learning, it's frustrating in the beginning until it becomes second nature. So but the big point I want to make, and Misty's right, if you want to give someone an explanation, you're absolutely entitled to do that. For me, I if I explain something and someone wants to try to make me feel bad for that, I don't take that, because that's how they interpret my boundaries is on them. It's only my responsibility to be like, hey, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm willing to share. And if that's not enough for you, that's your issue, not my issue.
Oh no, I totally agree.
Yeah. And same with
Absolutely.
employers. I mean, guys,
Oh
you
gosh.
don't have to share, you know, more than, I mean, check with local legislation and regulations, but there's a reason that we have things like HIPAA to protect that privacy of that health information, so just make sure that those boundaries at work are the same thing. If someone and a coworker walks up and is like, how come you're missing work all the time, and you don't want to tell them, you don't have to tell them, you
Yeah,
know
absolutely.
so
Um,
you guys can gauge that.
so I looked up, just to kind of give other people an idea. I looked up personal boundaries and what that means, just so I can kind of describe it in case people are like, well, what exactly are boundaries?
Right.
So, personal boundaries are guidelines, rules, or limits that a person creates to identify reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for other people to behave towards them and how they will respond when someone passes those limits.
Yeah. Perfect.
I like it.
It's
Yeah.
exactly it. Because it basically, and I had written in my notes, it lets others know how you expect and deserve to be treated. And it sends a clear message as to what behavior is acceptable to you, not them.
Hmm.
Because you
I
are only
agree.
in charge of you. That's all you have control over. And in a body that we often feel out of control of, being able to have control over how we're treated is a really big deal, I think, and kind of
Yeah,
that self-care, under that self-care umbrella, because there's so much that's out of our control.
it's true. And so, and social media, something I want to bring up with social media too is like, if there's people who you don't like, or you don't like what they read, or it rubs you the wrong way, then delete them.
Yeah,
Delete them, or if you're in a situation where you can't delete them because maybe you don't want them to ask like, oh, why'd you delete me, or something like that, then unfollow them. There's an unfollow button,
right.
they won't show up in your feed. I mean, that's another thing, boundary that you have control over. One thing
Absolutely.
I noticed about like sharing a lot of my personal issues and health, and I'm an open book now, and so a lot of people really don't like that. I've
Mm,
noticed, and they're not supportive. And I would say like once a month, somebody will crawl out of the woodwork and go off on me. They'll say something like horrible in my comments. I've even had a relative send me messages saying like horrible, nasty, like, you know, mean things to me.
personal
Um,
attacks.
yeah, and so it's like, and it's not even necessarily that got to me, like the insults. It's that like I'm like questioning them, like, why are you following me? Why would you
Right.
follow someone if they irk you or upset you or make you feel that way? Like
Right.
just delete me, or delete them, unfollow them. Like where, that's, where are your boundaries to where you're going to let someone anger you like that, to where you just have to go unleash on them and attack them, you know?
Right. And I mean, it's the age-old argument, social media provides a place where we can share thoughts and feelings and all of that, but it's not an invitation for someone, because you put it on a public platform, it does not give someone the right to mistreat you. I mean, it's kind of like
Right.
movie stars, how they feel, like, yes, we're in the spotlight, but our kids are off limits, like there are a lot of,
Hmm.
and they set those boundaries, like, you can take pictures of us, don't take pictures of our kids, like, and I think that says a lot, because it's like, look, like, you you put something out on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and if someone comes at you, that says more about them than on you.
Right.
And you have the power. Don't think you have to take it because you put something out there, and that one person who is having their own issue, but you can come back and say, like, I post things, this is my personal
Hmm.
page, and like you
That's
said,
what
if
I
you
say.
don't
I'm like,
like
get
it,
off my feed.
yeah.
Get off my feed. And then
You
I go straight and delete them. I'm like, I'll go ahead and
absolutely
I'll delete
take
me
that.
for you.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. No, it's super
Um,
important.
as another thing I want to bring up for boundaries that was important for me, I have a lot of friends and acquaintances, people I know that have suffered from miscarriages or infertility.
Yeah.
And so like my heart breaks for them that like, Mother's Day and all, these holidays, and some of the memes and the posts and the questions that they get. I mean, um, I know for, like, I had a hysterectomy a year ago, actually today or tomorrow. um, and so, like, it didn't bother me. I didn't let it bother me, but I had a lot of people, like, getting married to my husband and stuff. I had a lot of people like, "Oh, are you guys gonna have a baby?" And it's like,
Right.
my health isn't in a good place to where I can do that.
Mhm.
Um, and so, like, we were okay with it. We've had the talk, like, I'm comfortable. Of course, there's a slight little tiny bit of me that is like, yeah, I mean, I guess in a way I wish that was an option or something, but um, it I can't imagine someone who has to deal with that on a regular basis,
Right.
um, and it's like I I feel like a lot of people. I guess what I'm trying to say is, maybe if you want to advise to maybe respect other people's boundaries that you may not see, that may not be put out there because it's hurtful, is just to kind of consider that we don't know everyone's story. So, um, when it's like we're kind of programmed and trained that way. Like, I mean, I've even done it before. I have a client, and she was married, and I even was like, when are you guys gonna have babies? And I just felt like so stupid when she was like, well, I can't. She had um a health condition, and she wasn't able to. And I was just like, oh my god, like, I got to be like, how many people who have said this to her? And um and so I had a friend who posted on Facebook the other day, because she started speaking up about it, kind of giving advice. I guess she saw a billboard, about having babies. It was a religious billboard. um and she said, it said, well, I don't know if I want to read it, because I don't want to kind of get the religious,
Right. Right.
thing going on. But it's like, it kind of made her feel like, what about people with infertility and miscarriages? Like, what does that mean for them?
Mhm.
And as if, like, the ability to procreate makes you special, or you know so she kind of was just trying to say,
Just be
to be
thoughtful.
mindful. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the other thing too, she was saying how they have, like, the boutique stuff that says, like, only the best moms get promoted to grandma. And so she was saying, well, my mom's awesome, even though she's not a grandmother. And it's stuff like that, that I feel like people don't keep consider. So, maybe in the future, try not to ask someone, like, when they're having babies, or
Sure.
you know
And it might even be something that is in their control. So let's say that they've got a healthy, female system and they just choose not to have kids. So there's a lot of
right.
things to consider, and that's something, if we kind of go back, which Missy and I've talked about a lot of um, different times throughout our episodes, kind of going back to, kindergarten with the golden rule and just remembering to treat others the way you want to be treated, and you wouldn't want to take advantage of someone, pushing them all around because they're a really nice person, just because, they haven't really spoken up for themselves, and vice versa.
Hmm.
So it's like, if you're mindful about, but again, that's where boundaries come in, because it's kind of like someone, I think, even if they're not meaning to push, will push, even well intentioned. And if you're not able to stand up and say, like, look, like, I know that you're coming from a great place, I know that you care about me, but this has to, offering me
Yeah.
medical advice and what you think I should be doing and shouldn't be doing, or you see me out and about on a good day and, you have a comment about that, that's great, you can have an opinion, but just keep it to yourself, I don't want to hear it. I don't
Yeah.
want to hear, I'm living my life the best that I can. And the people closest to me know what I can and can't do. And beyond that, like, and it's so hard, guys. Like, I'm not even saying, like, someone can make a negative comment on something I have said or a picture, or they're like, oh, you couldn't make it to our event last weekend, but, I see you're at Disney today.
Mm.
And I used to feel like I had to take on all of those fights because I had to explain myself. And now I don't. I'm like, the people that know me know I'm not faking my chronic illness, and I don't have to advertise that I have one.
Yeah.
So so if that person is coming at me and judging me, it's not somebody I really want in my life anyway. So it kind
Yeah.
of get pushed to the outer tier of people that I
Yeah.
need to associate with.
It's true. You need to sometimes just cut those people out. It you know, it's like cutting the toxins out of your life, whether it's food or friends, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
family even. It sometimes that's just part of what you need to do as you're setting your boundaries. If people are going to continue to cross them and not understand, then you know, then what can you do after you've said something and they still push and push? Then maybe it is time to reevaluate that friendship or that relationship. I know, like for me, one of the things I've learned is to, and I still work on it, is to speak up. I know, like, having, a family member who will have really strong opinions about how to deal with health and chronic illnesses. And I feel like you have to have your voice sometimes and speak up. Otherwise, you can build resentment. And that's one thing
Mhm.
that I found myself. I started to get resentful and a little bit of like bitterness and kind of anger towards a particular person because I felt like my boundaries weren't being respected. Um, and so then I just eventually kind of had the conversation like, hey, I value your opinion. I know you have good
Mhm.
intentions. I know you care. However, this is how I'm doing things. Um, could you please respect that? And like sometimes just having that conversation can really make a difference because you don't want to build resentment towards a loved one. Um, you know, and but sometimes you don't have control over the way they push and push. So having that a good healthy conversation can really um, repair that in a way,
Well,
hopefully.
and I'm and the well, and the flip side of that is, I have someone that's very close to me, a parent that I had to actually finally have no contact with because after setting multiple boundaries, I didn't realize how much it was really affecting not only my mental health, but my physical health. Because when you're constantly in that state of defending yourself or explaining
Hmm.
yourself, or and you it takes what little energy you have left over anyway, that at some point, and it's different for everyone, it's not a three strikes you're out rule for everyone, so I mean that's a very personal choice. But I had to say, like, no matter what, this is not healthy for me anymore. And just because you're a family member and especially a parent, you know I can't continue to be in a relationship where you continuously violate boundaries that I set
Hmm.
for myself. I don't have any ill will, I don't have any, but I've laid my boundaries out very clearly and you continue to step over them. So then this, and with warning, I've said if you continue to step over my boundaries, then we're not going to be able to have a relationship. And that's what I had to do. And
Hmm.
let me tell you, my mental health and my physical health started to come back. And it empowered me because I was like, look, even though this was really tough and it still makes me, upset and sad, I'm able to keep myself safe
Yeah.
because this person, even though, they were a parent, they weren't, treating me with respect, and I didn't feel safe. And that's really important, guys. Like, if you don't feel safe, I mean, obviously if you're in a situation that your safety is threatened, your physical, safety, that's, you need to reach out and get resources to get out of that situation. But I think we sometimes don't recognize when our mental and emotional well-being gets held hostage.
Hmm.
And so that's those two things are very important, as far as keeping them safe for your well-being. So, you
Yeah,
know
I had a similar experience actually with my dad. Um, it's hard for me to talk about because I'm always paranoid. Like, what if he listens to this? Um, but I don't think he'd even know how or if I even have a podcast. But I love my dad and he's got a huge heart, but he definitely has mental health issues that have never been recognized, let alone worked on.
mhm.
And he is an alcoholic, and he was physically abusive, uh, you know, to my mother and my brother, and definitely emotionally abusive to me and everyone else. And so it's hard because it's it's for me, finding the boundaries, like for my dad in that relationship, is still something like to this day that I work on.
Sure.
I've gotten better, about it. Like, I mean, he'll sometimes get in these low points where, and he'll mix with the alcohol, where he'll just like text me and attack me and call me like the worst name you can imagine, and say the horrible, horrible things out of nowhere. It's like, literally, I just
Right.
talked to you like this morning, said I love you, and like,
Mm.
here you are, and it would just eat me up. I would be like shaking. I'd be so mad. I'd be upset, like hurt. And it still bothers me, but I finally have learned to just say, you know what, I'm not gonna talk to you until I would just say it in a nice, like respectful way, like, I don't deserve to be treated this way. I'm your daughter. Um, I'm not gonna be talked to this way. I physically cannot handle, the stress of the, emotional abuse that you are basically, laying on me right
Inflicting.
now. And
Yeah.
so I have to, there's a setting in the iPhone where I can go and do the do not disturb so I don't get the notifications, and I let them pile up, and I'm like, don't read it, and I won't look at it,
Yeah.
And there's been times where we go a while without talking, and I've had to do that so many times to where it's gotten to the point now where, like, um, we have the boundaries are kind of there. There's still moments,
Right.
but um, it's important, to set that up, and I don't know. I think everyone kind of handles that different. Like, some people, could completely cut him off 100%, and for me, it's like,
Right.
I know, like, his health isn't well and that he doesn't have a lot of time left. And so I think part of my struggle is I don't want, like, that to be our last conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, but yeah,
Well,
I
and
mean,
that's
it's definitely not healthy, but trying to find the boundaries so that um, I don't let it eat me up. I think one of the things I had to do is, I actually wrote about it not too long ago, is I said, hurt people hurt people.
mm-hmm.
And I had to kind of change my perspective, like, okay, he's hurt, and this is where he is in his life, and so he's hurting others because he's so hurt.
Sure.
And I kind of just stopped taking it personal. I'm like, he doesn't mean this about me, he means about himself, and
Right.
I stopped letting it get to me, and that was kind of something I intertwined with my boundaries, was my perspective as well.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, when you talk about boundaries, like you, if it's a property boundary and someone trespasses that boundary, you let them know they're trespassing. And that's the
Hmm.
same thing with this kind of thing. When you have a parent or, whoever it may be that's violating your boundary, and you say, like, look, in this case, Misty was able to say, like, I'm not telling you you can't drink. I'm not telling you that you can't have an opinion, but you cannot talk to me this way. If you
Hmm.
continue to talk to me this way, I'm going to have to block your notifications, because then it allows them to know what you're willing to take. And then it also tells them what will happen if they violate it. And so, in Misty's case, she's able to do what we call low contact, which means, you're not cutting someone out completely. Whereas, like, for me, with my parent, I had to go no contact, which is, there's zero contact, because for me, no matter how many times I said you're trespassing, the trespassing continued to happen, and there was no other way to protect myself.
Right.
So, but that's a very personal choice, and there's no right or wrong way.
Absolutely.
And you can play around with it. So, you might try no contact, but let's say you miss them and you really want to try to let them in. So you can even state your boundaries even more clear. Like, look, I want to have a relationship with you, but this is what I'm willing to accept. And if you
Hmm.
can't do that, then we can't have a relationship. Or, in Missy's case, she's able to do it in a way that's not so confrontational. She can
Oh
turn
no,
off
trust me, it gets
notifications.
confrontational, or it
Right.
has. Like I said, it's something I still work on, and it's
Sure.
still something that's, a struggle. But at the end of the day, I think, developing boundaries that work for you is, I mean, as long as you're starting somewhere. For me, it's an ongoing process of, like,
It's
um,
constant adjustments, constant
absolutely,
tweaking. And the
yeah,
important thing to remember, guys, is when you're setting a boundary, why are you setting that boundary? Why do you need that boundary? So, for a lot of us with chronic illness, it's to protect our, what little energy we have left, because there are a lot of energy vampires around. um, but for some people it may be, it's an abusive situation. So just try to figure out your why and, you know, go from there.
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah, everybody, is going to have their own reason why they need boundaries, even if you don't have a chronic illness. That's what I love about with our podcast. Like a lot of times it's not even, it's something that can be applied to people who don't have a chronic illness. Just, finding boundaries with your friendships, relationships, family, work, even just my personal boundaries.
Mhm.
Sometimes I have to establish boundaries with myself. Like I'll try to push myself to do too much and give myself a hard time if I don't. And so trying to find that healthy line that, yeah, that I'm not gonna cross because I'll do it to
Absolutely.
myself. So
Mhm.
um and as far as self-care goes, like one of the best things you can do for self-care is to you know implement boundaries
Mhm.
for sure.
Yep. Yep.
Do you have any other things you want to add?
No, I think that we pretty much touched on at least getting started. If you guys have questions about boundaries or maybe how to get started in setting boundaries, reach out to us. You guys can reach us, through direct messaging on Instagram. You can reach out on our Facebook. We have an email, it's theinvisibleidiaries@gmail.com. So if you guys have questions, reach out. We're more than willing to, answer if we know. And if we don't, we'll send you in the direction of someone who may know.
Absolutely. And our next episode 9, is toxic positivity. So that'll be a fun one for you to stay tuned and keep an eye out for. And again, you can find us anywhere at The Invisible Diaries. This is available on YouTube. It's available on iTunes, and I think I might be putting it on iHeartRadio and a few other things I'm working on this week. So don't
Awesome.
ever hesitate to reach out. We are
Yeah, and we
here.
appreciate you guys so much for listening. So
Absolutely. Bye.
have a good week.